as I've said through the week, tourism operators across the country have taken millions of dollars in cancellations because of recently closed borders to New South Wales, in WA's case, and Sydney. In fact, modelling composed by economic consultant Stafford Strategy claim the cost to tourism and aviation is close to $3 billion. While many in New South Wales won't get caught out again, the Queensland Tourism Industry Council is pleading with Sydney residents to keep their bookings to Queensland in January current. Now, Council CEO Daniel Gschwind joins me from Brisbane right now. This is going to be a hard task to convince New South Wales people to do this. Daniel, thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Chris.
So, firstly, you must be as mad as hell about the yo-yo approach to opening and closing borders in places like Queensland.
Oh, look, it's been a devastating step backwards, obviously, for us. We were absolutely overjoyed a couple of months ago when our borders opened to New South Wales, Victoria, everywhere, and we had free travel again. It brought a spring into the step of thousands of tourism operators and obviously a lot of joy to the visitors to Queensland. So it was a real body blow emotionally and also financially, as you just said, to all these operators.
Especially when you've got 7 days to Christmas where people are mobile usually and transferring and transiting to other places. What's it costing roughly to the tourism sector in Queensland?
Look, it's in the hundreds of millions, Chris. It's very hard to estimate exactly, but intrastate tourism contributes $10 billion a year. In 2019, it did to Queensland. And so that's about 800 million a month, an average month. It would be much more over the Christmas holiday, of course. So it is not just a huge number that we can hardly imagine, but it's actually translating into an impact in thousands of tourism businesses who struggle to maintain their staff, who struggle to cover their costs. That's where the pain really is.
All right. For those who've had to cancel and get credit notes, not refunds, and have had to go through the rigmarole of changing their plans for Christmas entirely, once bitten, twice shy. What do you say to those people about continuing their planned or yet to be planned journeys to Queensland?
Well, I can appreciate that everybody's rattled, the consumers, the tourism operators who put on staff and make preparations. So we're all in an incredible period of uncertainty. And that is the great enemy of tourism. We book travel, we go on trips when we feel confident, when we feel good about the future. And all of that is on shaky grounds at the moment. I appreciate that. And we just urge people to consider carefully that the bookings hopefully will be realised. Come 8th of January, our Premier, the Queensland Premier, has said she will assess the borders and presumably open them again because that's 28 days since the initial case occurred on the northern beaches. So beyond January, beyond the 8th of January, we should be okay again. I can't guarantee it either, but I think we might as well stick with the program and hope that we can not only make the businesses turn over again, but also provide the services to the visitors who will have a great time in Queensland, I'm sure.
But this is where the bar gets too high. The Commonwealth Medical Team is not suggesting that states use this 28-day no locally transmitted diseases measurement. It's only Queensland that does that. And I just wonder whether it's taking into account the loss of business, loss of jobs, the billions lost to the economies right around Australia. Because you can't just balance the virus. You've got to balance the other panic that we have about never having jobs and businesses open again in some of these areas.
No, absolutely. Look, we don't disagree with you, and we certainly make the case as often as we can. And we had another phone hookup with Joe, this Chief Health Officer, this week, as a matter of fact. And we certainly made our case again. They insist that the risk of having a situation as it has emerged in the UK and in parts of Europe is significant, and that, of course, would be a catastrophic outcome. There's nobody arguing with that. But we certainly would push more in the direction of opening earlier. There's no secret about that. On balance, the Queensland government chooses to stick with 28 days. We will continue to make the case for our industry, for our businesses, to make sure the balance is right and also supports the community, not just the tourism businesses, but the community that depends on a flourishing tourism industry in Queensland.
Yeah, I just wonder whether the message is getting through. You know, the Premier has been awfully stubborn throughout this process. And I understand Queensland is saying, oh, we don't want any infection, thank you. We don't want any infection. But the other side of the story are the businesses, and they don't hear about what goes on with these people. They won't hear about the jobs that will fall off the cliff at the end of March when JobKeeper falls out. That will be the real panic time that maybe the government will look back and say, gee, we could have done better with that.
Well, that's precisely why we're saying keep the booking, because we obviously hope that come late January, February, March and so on, we will have business to go back to and we will have visitors coming back. That's precisely it. But we are on the upside, I have to tell you, Chris, we're pleased that we didn't close to all of New South Wales. WA, Tasmania, Northern Territory closed their borders to the entire state of New South Wales. Yeah. At least we didn't go there. So we're grateful for small mercies. Yeah,
they announced it in a very confusing way. It was very ambiguous. You thought the way Anastasia Palaszczuk announced it, that it did include New South Wales. But for those who don't know, it doesn't include New South Wales. It's only WA and others that are doing all of that. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe you've convinced a few tonight to hang on to their bookings. Hopefully that's the case, because you have one of the most wonderful states in Australia. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris, and a Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too, Daniel Gschwind.